So the Las Vegas Raiders have officially fired offensive coordinator Chip Kelly. I don't agree with this decision, and I'm going to tell you guys why in today's video. We've also started to fire a couple other people, and we'll talk about some of what this kind of means. Chip Kelly actually responded and put a message out there after his firing, and I want to show that to you guys as well. But let's talk about this. So Adam Schefter was the first to put it out there. Sources, Chip Kelly is out as the Las Vegas Raiders offensive coordinator. Again, I'm not surprised to see that we're starting to fire some people, right? 3 weeks back, it was Tom McMahon, the special teams coach, that we ended up saying we're going to fire this guy. And now it's Chip Kelly, the offensive coach. We're going to fire this guy. In 2 weeks, it'll probably be Patrick Graham saying he's not good enough either. But in my opinion, I think there's so much more blame that can go around outside of Chip Kelly. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys. Chip Kelly was not perfect. He was not the type of coach that you looked at and said, hey, the offense is just so much better this year. But I also think that for the Raiders, you come into a season when you bring in Chip Kelly, you come into a season where you bring in Geno Smith. You come into a season where you're saying, hey, we're going to pair these guys up and we're going to have success. But then at the same time, you say we're not going to revamp the offensive line. A couple years back, the Raiders brought in Dylan Parham and they drafted him and they brought him in and said, hey, this is going to be the one guy that's going to fix our offensive line. And he played, he's kind of an average starting guard in the NFL. Not great, not terrible either. He's kind of average. Then a couple years later, they bring in Jackson Powers-Johnson. And JPJ's a really good offensive lineman, but that's all they've really done, right? Like, they haven't put a lot of investments on the offensive line. They drafted DJ Glaze, a third-round pick, as an offensive tackle. It just hasn't been enough, in my opinion, to revamp the offensive line. If you guys go back to March, April, and you guys look at my videos and hear me talking about the Raiders, I said it, that the Raiders have to revamp the offensive line multiple times. And all John Spytek did was he said, we're going to bring in Alex Kappa, $5.5 million per year. To me, that was that was kind of the point where you recognize that the Raiders are going to have a little bit of flaws on the offensive line. And again, we talked about this even as the season was approaching. This team will go as far as the offensive line will take it, right? Because we knew the offensive line did not look great at least on paper. And I'm not surprised we're struggling, right? And I know a lot of you guys might not be surprised either because, again, it was always going to come down to the offensive line. And it's unfortunate for Chip Kelly because Chip Kelly's run good offenses in the past. He's even had a little bit of success with the Raiders running offense. But at the end of the day, if your offensive line can't, simply give your quarterback enough time. I watched the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles recap yesterday after the game kind of ended. And you see so many plays where Dak Prescott snaps the ball and he just sits back there. He looks left, it's not developing. He looks right, it's not developing. And he's still just clean the entire time. Like, he'll have like 4 seconds back there, it's just clean. I don't know if Geno Smith has had that even once this season. Like, it's been so damn awful on the offensive line, and it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. When JPJ got hurt, the offensive line just looked completely different, right? And that's all obviously considering both Colt Miller and JPJ are out at this point. The offensive line does not look good. And again, put that blame on John Spytek for not revamping the offensive line. Also, let's not overlook the fact that Pete Carroll is unwilling to play the rookies. And I truly, truly do believe in this. John Spytek, Pete Carroll are not on the same page. These two guys are doing the complete opposite. John Spytek has brought in guys that he thinks will develop long-term and be good players long-term. Pete Carroll wants guys to win now, but the thing is Jordan Meredith is not good enough to help you win now, right? Alex Kappa, Will Putnam, these guys are not good enough to help you win today. That's not what these guys are. Pete Carroll, for some reason, still thinks these guys are good enough to help us win. There's a report that Caleb Rogers, who thought at some point, hey, Jordan Meredith just got hurt, I'm going to start warming up. I'm potentially about to go into this game right now, only for him not to go in the game. Instead, they put Alex Kappa in, and people are saying that, hey, we saw Caleb Rogers. He was visibly frustrated, the fact that he was not able to get into the game in that moment. And to me, it's just crazy to think because that's a Pete Carroll decision right there. And again, it's just unfortunate. It's really, really, really unfortunate. But Chip Kelly is out, and we haven't named an interim offensive coordinator yet. I think the Raiders will probably end up going with Greg Olsen, who is with the Raiders right now. He's our quarterback's coach. He's been here, even in the past. He's been with the Raiders. He was our offensive coordinator, I believe, in 2012 to 2014, or around that time. I think like 2 or 3 years. He was our offensive coordinator. And then he was our OC once again under John Gruden. So he's an experienced offensive coordinator, but, has this guy called plays in the past? I know he has, but like, does he have the experience to be that guy? At the same time, there's actually a coach that the Raiders have, Luke Steckel, who's our tight ends coach. Those are a report, I believe it was Tom Pelissero that put this out recently. In that report, he had Luke Steckel as one of the hottest names in football in terms of like the young coaches. He's our tight ends coach right now. Keep that in mind. And he's apparently the next great coach potentially in the NFL. And I almost think if the Raiders have a guy that is potentially this next really, really, really good coach, why not let him call plays? Let's see what this guy can do. He's young. He's a tight ends coach, just like Ben Johnson. 2 years ago, Ben Johnson was also a tight ends coach. Before they fired, I forget who it was that was their offense coordinator at that time. And then they put Ben Johnson in charge and said, hey, you're going to call the plays at this point. And then Ben Johnson in the 6 games, keep in mind the Lions had not won a game up to that point, 6 games left. He won 3 of those last 6 games. And then they promoted him to the full-time offense coordinator, and the rest is history. He's one of the greatest coaches right now in the NFL. Let's see what Luke Steckel has. We already know Greg Olson's not going to be our long-term coach. Let's at least see if there's any sort of upside in some of these guys, right? And we'll see what the Raiders end up doing. It hasn't officially been announced who the OC will be. Chances are by the time this video goes live, that may already be out. Also, so Pete Carroll did put this message out yesterday. He said, I spoke with Chip Kelly earlier this evening and informed him of his release as offense coordinator of the Raiders. I would like to thank Chip for his service and wish him all the best in the future. Pete Carroll put this message out, and of course, Chip Kelly also did end up responding. Chip Kelly had a classy message about Geno Smith after getting fired by the Raiders. This actually came out through Jay Glazer. So NFL insider Jay Glazer was the one that spoke to Carroll after the decision. And apparently this is what Kelly said. He said, I am grateful for the opportunity with the Raiders. Bottom line, in this league, you have to win. I really love those players. I'm a huge Geno Smith fan. That was one of the best parts of this experience for me, working with Geno and those guys every day. But hey, we got to win. I get it. And that's kind of what Chip Kelly said on his way out. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys, man. I haven't put enough blame on Geno Smith, I think, in the past. And I'm gonna put a little bit of blame on this guy. So, I do think the Raiders' biggest issue is still the offensive line, right? And I think you can put that partly on John Spytek, maybe even Pete Carroll a little bit, because as a head coach, you should know what you have coming into the season. If this is a tank year, tank it out, and then don't fire your coach, Chip Kelly. Play the young guys. And Pete Carroll isn't coming into it thinking it's a tank year. He's looking to win games. So, to me, it's 2 completely different paths between Pete and John. But, if you think this is a year for you to win, and you think the O-line's good enough, and the quarterback's good enough, and the OC's good enough, you should come in and actually be able to tell your quarterback that, hey, we're winning this year. And if your quarterback can't get it done, then make that change as well, right? Pete Carroll has fired Tom McMahon for being a bad special teams coach. He's fired Chip Kelly now for what he describes as being a bad offensive coordinator. Well, we have a quarterback that's been playing pretty bad as well. So maybe it's time for the Las Vegas Raiders to also bench Geno Smith. And let's see what Aiden O'Connell has or Kenny Pickett has. Because we already know Geno Smith struggled. And look, if Kenny Pickett comes out there and gets sacked and does not have success and he struggles because the offensive line's not good, and then Aiden O'Connell comes 2 weeks later, he struggles because the offensive line's not good, well, guess what? We'll all know at that point it's the offensive line that's holding us back. But what if AOC comes in and he throws for 7 touchdowns? I think at the end of the day, you got to at least try something different. Plus, I'm going to be honest, the thing that really rubs me the wrong way is the fact that Geno Smith was out there flipping fans off. I'm going to play this video for you guys. Apparently, Geno Smith is over here flipping fans off. And apparently, this is some fans that were yelling at Geno Smith, cussing at Geno Smith, and he flips them right back off. And, generally, if you're you won 8 games, you're 8-3 or whatever, I would not mind Geno Smith doing this. But the fact that this is the guy that's supposed to be the leader of our team, and the fact that this guy's flipping fans off, this just rubs me the wrong way, to be honest with you guys. I know some of you guys will disagree with it. Some of you guys might agree with me. But Geno Smith is also partly to blame, and to flip off fans. And again, I don't know who he's flipping off. I don't know if someone has a poster like how we had seen when the Raiders played the Seahawks. I just don't like this, right? And I think Geno Smith also does deserve a little bit of blame, right? You can't go into the season and say Geno deserves zero blame. He still deserves a little bit as well. And it's unfortunate because the season's over. There's really nothing to look forward to. And we might end up firing all of these coaches when we could look to actually try to get better and put some of these guys in charge. Now, we also did fire another coach. Before we get into that, I want to just take a quick second to give you guys an update on my fitness journey. If you guys recall, over the past couple of weeks, I've spoken about this multiple times. One of the big changes I've made in my life is getting out and exercising. Rather that's taking my kids on a walk every single day, trying to go for a run or getting to the gym and lifting weights. Exercising and just generally speaking, fitness has been a huge part of my life. And of course, part of fitness also comes down to what you're putting into your body. Making sure you're eating good quality food. And with Factor, today's sponsor, Factor delivers fresh, never frozen, chef-crafted food straight to your doorsteps. Now, I'll be honest with you guys. I think the best part of Factor is the wide range and variety of food that they have. Over 100 rotating weekly meals. So you're never going to get sick of the type of foods that Factor can bring you. You're not eating the same 12 things like I was when I was meal prepping, because Factor gives you all the options. And again, these are high quality, good tasting, nutrient dense foods. And another part of why I trust Factor is the fact that they have over 175 banned ingredients. So you're not going to get seed oils. You're not going to get refined sugar. They are 100% focused on your health to bring you nutrient-dense, long-lasting energy types of food. Overall wellness is a huge part of why I chose Factor. And let's also be honest, being able to heat something that's good quality and essentially you'll be enjoying your food within 2 minutes is also another factor as to why I chose Factor, no pun intended. Now, if you guys are interested in improving your health and giving Factor a chance, go check them out right now at factor75.com. or click the link down in the comments below and use the code RaidersFB50 for 50% off and free breakfast for an entire year. Again, that's RaidersFB50 at factor75.com. Make sure you guys give them a try. Let's get right back into the content. So just to wrap it up, so the Las Vegas Raiders fired another coach today. A senior offensive assistant, Bob Bicknell, was fired. If you guys don't know this, Bob was apparently Chip Kelly's right-hand man, and apparently Chip Kelly and Bob spent all the time together, game planning and designing how the Raiders are going to essentially attack some of these different teams. None of that really worked, so I'm not surprised that Bob is also kind of on the way out. But again, I think for the Raiders, you're coming into this next stretch of the season, right? It's the last third of the season, quarter of the season. The Raiders, to have success for this next part, I think the only success you can really see is to figure out which players are good enough and which players have upside going into next season. Is it your right tackle of the future in Charles Grant? Do you have a interior offensive lineman of the future in Caleb Rogers? I think those two questions have to be answered this season, because what if both guys come out? And what if both guys are so damn good, but then you end up drafting a guy because you don't play him and you really never know. And then Charles Grant goes to another team. He ends up being, the best offense tackle in the NFL. Or Caleb Rogers becomes the best guard in the NFL. I think those questions have to be answered, because you can see upside and potential pretty much within like 3 weeks. You know what a guy is, what the upside and you'll see traits and those type of things. I think the Raiders have to realistically make that happen at this point. And again, I don't know if Pete Carroll might feel like, hey, I'm on my way out as well, so maybe I don't want to play some of the young guys. But let's get 3 or 4 games of the young guys in there, right? Let's let them potentially finish the rest of the season out there. I think, even being able to figure out if guys like Kenny Pickett or Aiden O'Connell have upside. Because Aiden, we've seen it in the past. And with Aiden, I'm not too excited to watch Aiden, right? I think he's always limited with the inability to create plays. But maybe it's Kenny Pickett, a guy that was a first-round pick in the past. Maybe he's a guy that you can rely on potentially, right? So again, I think for the Raiders, you need to figure out before you go into this draft what you have. Because the worst thing the Raiders can do is go into a draft and say, we're going to draft another offensive tackle, and you might already have the guy that you could potentially put out there. The Pittsburgh Steelers had a really, really, really stud of an offensive lineman. Kevin Dotson's one of the best guards in all of football right now, and they gave up on him after 2 seasons. At the end of his second season, they traded him to the Rams for like a 6th, 7th round pick, and he is now the best right guard in the NFL, or arguably one of the best. The guy's physically dominant. And the Rams basically got him for free because the Steelers did not want to, play him. They did not want to put him out there for whatever reason. I don't know if the coaching just had an issue with this guy. But we've seen stories like this happen in the past. John Simpson's pretty good right now. And for some reason, Josh McDaniels did not want to play John Simpson. Again, whatever the reasoning was, we released him like five weeks into the season or whatever. John Simpson's a pretty good guard in the NFL right now, right? He's probably better than all of the guards we have on this roster. And again, sometimes you want to find out what you have before you go into a draft because that could impact how you draft, right? We can figure out the quarterbacks, the guards, the tackles. Even on the defensive side, let's play the rookies. Yeah, let's see if Tonka Hemingway or J.J. Pegues have any sort of upside. Put those guys out there and let them play. Put out Darian Porter. Another thing I think the Raiders have to try is we need to try different types of schemes and rules for some of these guys. Because I'm not sold on Pete Carroll. There's a chance Pete ends up getting fired in the offseason as well. And I know John Spytek can't dictate to Pete Carroll of, what to do, how to play with guys or whatever. Maybe you move off of Pete Carroll, right? Maybe the Raiders go ahead and say, hey, let's move off of Pete. Once you move off of Pete Carroll, you can put in a guy like Luke Steckel as your offense coordinator. You can put in Patrick Graham or even Robbie Leonard. Leonard's considered one of the better, young coaches in the NFL as well. Maybe you can go into the next half or third or fourth of the season, and maybe you can decide what you have in some of the younger guys, some of the younger coaches, right? You never know what could potentially happen. I think for the Raiders, you have to make these changes, and I really do hope John Spytek, I really do hope he makes that happen. I don't think it's going to happen with Pete Carroll because Pete Carroll's so stuck in his ways where Pete Carroll's not willing to make any sort of changes, right? He's so stuck in, we need to win now. We need to win games now. In reality, winning does nothing for the Raiders at this point, especially with Pete Carroll as our head coach. If Luke Steckel comes in and he wins, I don't know how many games we have left, 6 games, whatever. If he wins the next 4 of these 6 games, I'm happy as hell with that, assuming he looks really good as a play caller, and maybe it's Geno or maybe it's Aiden or maybe it's Kenny Pickett with Charles Grant out there at right tackle. I would like to see that happen, but not under Pete Carroll because Pete Carroll's not a good coach. He's not the future of this team. We'll see what ends up happening, man. I really do hope John Spytek sooner rather than later moves off of Pete Carroll. I don't think he's a good coach. He's way past his prime. There's a reason why the Seattle Seahawks pushed him out. He wasn't trying to leave. These guys got rid of him, right? And look at where the Seahawks are now. They're one of the best teams in all of football. They got rid of Pete Carroll and Geno and got way better. So we'll see what the Raiders do as we kind of go forward. Let me know what you guys think, man. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time with another video.